Look at this tick. 8 legs, engorged abdomen, attached for somewhere between 3 and 7 days, body expanding as it fills. It found a warm surface, anchored itself with a barbed mouthpart designed to resist removal, and has been slowly drinking ever since. This is the most familiar form of parasitism on Earth, and it is nowhere near the most disturbing. Parasitism has evolved independently across every kingdom of life for hundreds of millions of years, producing strategies so varied and so specific that the tick, a blood-drinking arachnid spending a week on your leg, is the reassuring end of the spectrum. Everything that follows is the other end. Parasitism is not a strategy, it is a category. Any relationship where one organism extracts resources from another at that organism's expense. Within that category, evolution has produced at least a dozen subtypes, each exploiting a different resource, a different entry point, a different moment in the host's life cycle. Some take blood, some take nutrients, some take reproductive capacity, some take the entire body as a nursery until nothing is left, and one takes behavior itself, rewriting the host's nervous system so completely that the host becomes, functionally, a different animal. The taxonomy of exploitation is not a list of exceptions. It is a map of everything a body can be used for by something that is not its owner. Ectoparasites, the surface dwellers. Ticks, fleas, lice. They live on the host's exterior, feeding without going inside. The easiest to remove, which is why they have evolved the most elaborate attachment mechanisms, barbed mouthparts, cement secretions, and claws calibrated to the exact diameter of a single hair. The human head louse cannot survive on any other species. It has spent its entire evolutionary history becoming perfectly dependent on one host and has nowhere else to go. Endoparasites, the interior. Tapeworms, malaria, everything that gets inside and stays there. The tapeworm anchors to the intestinal wall and absorbs nutrients directly through its skin. No mouth, no digestive system, just absorptive tissue inside a body, unknowingly feeding it. The largest ever recovered from a human measured 25 meters. The host had reported mild digestive discomfort. Malaria's Plasmodium invades red blood cells, replicates, and bursts them open in waves timed to the host's fever spikes. The fever is the host's response to the explosions. Parasitoids, the fatal tenants. A parasitoid always kills its host, slowly, from inside, using the living body as an incubator and food supply. The Ichneumon wasp injects eggs into a living caterpillar. The larvae hatch inside, avoid vital organs, keep the host alive until they are ready to pupate, then chew out through the skin simultaneously, spin cocoons on the still living host, and the caterpillar dies. Darwin cited the Ichneumon wasps as a reason for doubting that a benevolent God designed nature. The wasps have continued operating regardless. Brood parasites, the foster parents. The cuckoo lays its egg in another bird's nest. The host incubates it. The cuckoo chick hatches first, ejects the host's own eggs, and the host, often smaller than the chick, feeds it continuously until it fledges. An entire season's reproductive effort goes to raising something that shares none of the host's genes. The host behaves this way because the cuckoo egg triggers the same neural response as its own egg. The cuckoo did not break the host's parenting instinct. It learned to speak its language well enough to hijack it. Kleptoparasites, the thieves. Rather than taking from the body, kleptoparasites take what the host has gathered. The skua pursues seabirds until they disgorge their catch. The sharp-tailed bee lays eggs in a leafcutter bee's nest, where its larvae consume the food stores the host collected for its own young. Parasitism without contact. The subtype most recognizable to anyone who has had their lunch taken by a seagull. The seagull is running an evolutionarily ancient strategy. This does not make it less annoying. Parasitic castration is the subtype that reframes everything above it. The barnacle Sacculina injects a single cell into a crab's body. That cell travels to the abdomen and grows into a root-like network through every organ without killing any of them. The crab continues to live, feed, and function in almost every respect. Except one. It stops reproducing. Sacculina redirects the crab's reproductive resources entirely to its own reproduction. The crab's body is now a life support system for a parasite that has taken the one thing the body was ultimately for, while leaving everything else running. Here is the part that goes further. In male crabs, Sacculina rewrites the hormonal system, feminizing the host, causing it to perform female brooding behaviors, tending the parasite's egg mass as though it were its own offspring. The crab has no offspring. It is caring for something that is not its young, with behaviors it was not built to perform, in a body restructured from the inside by an organism that arrived as a single cell. At least the crab does not know what is happening. That is either comforting or more disturbing, depending on how long you sit with it. But castration is not the type with no precedent. Behavioral manipulation is. Toxoplasma gondii can only sexually reproduce inside a cat. It infects rodents as an intermediate host, migrates to the brain, suppresses the fear response to cat urine, and in some studies replaces it with something closer to attraction. The rodent moves toward cats. The cat eats the rodent. Toxoplasma completes its cycle. Toxoplasma also infects humans. Roughly 1/3 of the global population carries it. Most show no symptoms. But researchers have identified statistical correlations between infection and changes in risk tolerance, reaction time, and personality traits. Subtle, contested, not clinically significant, but present in the data. The parasite that rewires a rodent's survival instinct is present in approximately 2.5 billion humans, and we do not fully understand what it is doing there. The standard model: the parasite takes resources. The advanced model: the parasite takes control. The question keeping parasitologists awake is not whether this happens. It does. But how many times it happens in hosts that cannot report the change. The tick takes blood. The tapeworm takes nutrients. The cuckoo takes parental effort. Sacculina takes reproduction. Toxoplasma takes, in rodents, the will to avoid death. Each is a different answer to the same question. What does this body have that I can use? Parasitism evolved hundreds of times independently because the logic is sound. If something has resources, and you can take them without killing the source before you finish, the strategy works. The tick is not an anomaly. It is the default outcome of any ecosystem where bodies exist and other things need to eat. But if parasitism has evolved hundreds of times, exploiting every resource a body contains, including its behavior, what resources does your body have that something has not found a way to use yet? Toxoplasma arrived before we had tools to detect it. Sacculina arrived before the crab evolved a response. Every parasite on this list existed for millions of years in hosts with no framework for understanding what was happening to them. The tick is the one you can see. It is not necessarily the one you should be thinking about.